Every American is taught that war is the price of freedom. We're told that military spending keeps us safe, that defense contractors serve the nation, and that peace comes through strength. But if you look closely at the numbers, you'll see something much darker. War isn't just profitable for a few defense companies. It has become the most engineered, most sophisticated wealth extraction system in modern history. And the shocking part is that this machine doesn't just profit from conflict. It requires conflict to survive. Conflict. Let's start with a number that should terrify you. Since the day Russia invaded Ukraine, the top 5 American and European defense contractors have seen their stock prices rise by 48%. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, RTX Corporation, BAE Systems, and Rheinmetall didn't just benefit from the tragedy unfolding in Eastern Europe. They engineered their business models to turn human suffering into shareholder returns. This isn't an accident of markets responding to crisis. This is a system designed to extract maximum profit from maximum destruction. The architecture of this machine is breathtaking in its scope. From 2020 to 2024, private defense firms received $2.4 trillion in contracts from the Pentagon alone. That's not a typo. $2.4 trillion flowing from taxpayers to corporate balance sheets in just 4 years. And here's where it gets truly obscene. Just 5 companies captured $771 billion of that total. Lockheed Martin alone received $313 billion. RTX pulled in $145 billion. Boeing grabbed $115 billion. General Dynamics took $116 billion. Northrop Grumman collected $81 billion. These aren't just large numbers. They represent the most concentrated transfer of wealth from public coffers to private hands in American history. 5 companies now control 86% of Pentagon spending. Compare that to the end of the Cold War, when 51 contractors shared just 6% of defense budgets. The consolidation is stunning and deliberate. War has been transformed from a national necessity into a corporate monopoly. But the real genius of this system isn't just in the contracts. It's in how the machine perpetuates itself through what Washington insiders call the revolving door. According to recent reports, nearly 700 former high-ranking government officials now work for defense contractors. Think about that. Generals who once commanded troops now lobby for the companies that supplied those troops. Admirals who once protected American interests now protect corporate profit margins. Pentagon officials who once managed budgets now ensure those budgets keep growing. This isn't coincidence. It's by design. A 2021 Government Accountability Office report found that 1,700 senior government officials had taken positions in the arms industry over just 5 years. That's more than 300 officials per year walking through the revolving door from public service to private profit. These aren't low-level bureaucrats. These are the people who wrote the contracts, approved the purchases, and shaped the policies that now enrich their new employers. The lobbying machine that emerges from this revolving door is staggering. Defense contractors employ over 900 lobbyists in Washington. That's more than 1 lobbyist for every member of Congress. And these aren't ordinary lobbyists. 2/3 of them are former Pentagon officials or former congressional staff members. They know exactly which buttons to push, which relationships to leverage, and which fears to exploit to keep the money flowing. The financial mechanics of this system reveal its true nature. When Congress approves defense spending, it's not just buying weapons. It's guaranteeing decades of future revenue streams for these companies. Take the F-35 Lightning II program as a perfect example. The Pentagon will spend approximately $442 billion to develop and build the F-35 fleet. But here's the trap. The real money isn't in building the planes, it's in maintaining them. The Pentagon will spend nearly $1.6 trillion to sustain the F-35 fleet through 2088. That's 4 times the initial cost spread across decades of guaranteed payments. And here's the beautiful part for these companies. The F-35 has been plagued with technical problems, cost overruns, and schedule delays from the beginning. Any rational system would cancel a program this dysfunctional, but dysfunction isn't a bug in this system. It's a feature, because while the F-35 stumbles toward completion, the same companies are already developing the next-generation air dominance program, the so-called sixth-generation fighter. The cycle never ends. Broken systems create the justification for new systems, which will inevitably break and require newer systems. The Ukraine war has provided a perfect case study in how this machine converts human tragedy into corporate windfall. RTX Corporation has received $3 billion worth of orders tied to replenishing weapons sent to Ukraine. European defence companies have experienced similar windfalls. Saab, the Swedish defence contractor, has expanded its workforce by 3,600 people since 2022 and expects another 2,000 new hires. Their CEO admits he has never seen anything like this surge in demand for weapons. But this raises a darker question. If these companies profit most when the world burns, what incentive do they have to support peace? When Lockheed Martin's stock price rises every time a missile is fired, when RTX's profits soar with every conflict, when Northrop Grumman's shareholders celebrate every geopolitical crisis, the system has created a constituency for permanent war. The numbers don't lie. Total annual American military spending isn't the $700 or $800 billion you hear about in headlines. When you add veterans care, intelligence agencies, nuclear weapons maintenance, and military aid to foreign nations, the real figure approaches $1.5 trillion annually. That's double what Congress spends on all non-military purposes combined. This concentration of military spending creates a feedback loop that would make any economist's head spin. Congress members who vote on defense budgets hold millions in defense contractor stocks. According to financial disclosures, federal lawmakers collectively own up to $10.9 million worth of defense contractor shares. These same lawmakers sit on the committees that decide how much money flows to the very companies enriching their portfolios. Senator after senator who owns Lockheed Martin stock votes to approve Lockheed Martin contracts. Representatives with RTX investments champion RTX programs. The conflict of interest is so blatant, so obvious that it would be called corruption in any other context. But in Washington, it's called governance. 3 senators on the Armed Services Committee hold defense stocks. 5 members of the Appropriations Committee, including 2 on the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, profit directly from the spending they authorize. The beauty of this system, from the contractor's perspective, is that it eliminates market risk entirely. Normal businesses must compete for customers, innovate to survive, and face consequences for failure. Defense contractors operate in a protected ecosystem where competition is limited. Innovation is rewarded regardless of results, and failure often leads to larger contracts to fix the problems they created. Consider how this plays out in practice. When the Pentagon launches an operation like the 2011 intervention in Libya, it becomes an immediate windfall for contractors. In just the first 10 days, the administration spent $550 million, with $340 million going directly to munitions that had to be replaced. Every cruise missile fired creates a purchase order. Every bomb dropped generates revenue. Every conflict, no matter how brief, requires restocking the arsenal. The business model is elegant in its simplicity. Step 1. Create weapons designed to be used once and destroyed. Step 2. Ensure there are always conflicts that require using those weapons. Step 3. Charge premium prices for replacements because national security cannot wait for competitive bidding. Step 4. Use the profits to lobby for more conflicts that require more weapons. The cycle is self-sustaining and infinitely profitable. But the real sophistication lies in how these companies have transformed themselves from suppliers into essential partners. They don't just build weapons anymore. They design entire military strategies, conduct training programs, and provide ongoing support services that make the Pentagon dependent on them for basic operations. Lockheed Martin doesn't just sell F-35 jets. It trains the pilots, maintains the software, manages the supply chains, and upgrades the systems. The military cannot function without these contractors, which means the contractors can name their price. This dependency extends beyond individual weapon systems to entire theatres of operation. In Iraq and Afghanistan, contractors provided everything from meals to transportation to security services. The Pentagon outsourced so many functions that it created a parallel military run by private companies answerable to shareholders, not citizens. These contractors build the government for services that soldiers once performed themselves, multiplying costs while reducing accountability. The financial engineering behind modern defense contracts reveals just how sophisticated this wealth extraction has become. Companies structure deals to maximize long-term revenue streams rather than one-time sales. They embed themselves so deeply in military operations that cancelling contracts becomes impossible without crippling readiness. They design weapon systems so complex that only they can maintain them, creating decades of guaranteed service revenue. Meanwhile, the human cost of this profit machine remains invisible to most Americans. Every dollar flowing to defense contractors is a dollar not spent on education, infrastructure, healthcare, or social programs. The opportunity cost is staggering. That $1.5 trillion in annual military spending could eliminate student debt, rebuild crumbling bridges, provide universal healthcare, or fund a dozen other priorities that would improve actual security for actual people. But those alternatives don't generate stock options for former generals or campaign contributions for compliant politicians. Infrastructure projects end when the bridge is built. Healthcare improvements reduce long-term costs rather than creating them. Education investments take decades to pay off and don't require constant replacement. Only war offers the perfect combination of urgency, secrecy, and renewable destruction that keeps profits flowing indefinitely. The genius of this system is that it has convinced Americans to celebrate their own exploitation. Military spending is wrapped in flags and patriotic rhetoric that makes questioning it seem unpatriotic. Defense contractors market themselves as guardians of freedom rather than merchants of death. Politicians who vote for ever larger military budgets are praised for supporting the troops, even when those budgets enrich corporations while leaving actual soldiers with broken equipment and inadequate care. This machine has created a constituency that profits from global instability and has the political power to ensure that instability continues. When peace threatens their revenue streams, they have 900 lobbyists ready to explain why new threats require new weapon systems. So the question isn't whether this system will collapse under its own contradictions. The question is whether Americans will recognize what's happening before it's too late. War has become Wall Street's most profitable product because we allowed it to happen. We accepted the premise that endless military spending equals security, that corporate profits equal national strength, and that questioning the machine equals weakness. But history shows us that empires fall not from external enemies, but from internal rot. And there is no rot more destructive than a system that profits from perpetual conflict while calling it peace. Every missile contract, every lobbying dollar, every stock option granted to former generals is a step closer to a military-industrial complex so powerful that it controls the very government meant to oversee it. The machine doesn't serve America. America serves the machine. And until we understand that, until we see through the patriotic packaging to the corporate profiteering beneath, we will continue funding our own exploitation while calling it freedom. The numbers don't lie. The patterns don't change. The only question is whether you'll keep believing the lies or start following the money. Because in the end, that's where the truth always lives. If this opened your eyes to how the system really works, hit subscribe. The truth is hidden in plain sight if you know where to look.